Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Ronan Nazrin Talks. I'm one of your hosts, Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films.
And I'm the other one, the freakish looking one, the don't look at me one, just don't.
Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
Today we're joined not by one special guest, but two special guests. It did cost a lot for our budget to get both of them on. But we have Chris Mohan, who has a wonderful channel. You should check out if you haven't already. He's one of the biggest proponents of Second Run, and he's also doing a French cinema through the decades, which is very interesting. So go subscribe to his channel if you haven't already. And we're joined by Carol from Into the Blue, who has a wonderful channel as well, who does lots of top 5 lists, especially from what I call modern films. And obviously it's a good resource for me for what films I should be watching probably in the next 20 years by the time I catch up with them. So welcome both of you.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like I should have grown a beard, especially I feel very beardless today.
And today we're kind of going to discuss cinema burnout or film burnout, when you get tired of watching films, whether that actually exists for some of us or not, kind of how you get out of it, and comfort film watching and things like that.
Okay. Well, I'll let you begin then, Ronan, since you've done so well so far.
Well, I mean, I would just start it by saying I don't really get film burnout. What I kind of more get is life burnout that then affects your film watching rather than perhaps the other way around. Sometimes for sure you will perhaps watch 5 or 6 films and they're all quote 3-star films, so you kind of are feeling, when am I going to see the next great film? But for me personally, there's always kind of some value in 3-star films, whether it's in the extras or what went wrong or whatever. So for me, it's not perhaps cinema burnout, it's more life affecting your film watching, because sometimes you just come home and you don't have the energy to actually watch films. So that's kind of where I would start.
Yeah. I mean, for me, you look at my channel, sometimes it's 1-star films, a series of 1-star films that I've done reviews on.
Yeah, but for me, the reason that I keep watching films is the next one could be one of your favorite films. So even although, there'll be some films that aren't good, and you can switch your brain off while you're watching them, there's always that chance that the next one is going to end up being one of your favorites, and it's just going to blow you away.
Yeah, because over the weekend I've seen 2 of my favorite films of the year. Will be on my list. There's also, I've watched some trash as well at the same time. It's a weird mix of stuff. It's like there's some that actually are like top level, and there's other ones that just aren't. So I always look at random to actually it's a way to avoid being burnt out, is just be random as hell, because I find if I'm watching too many serious films, too many trashy films at once, it gets so repetitive and you actually end up losing interest, and you just feel that you're, why am I doing this? But if you mix them up, I find mixing them up really help, because it keeps me from actually hitting a void. And but sometimes you just get in the mood to watch a lot of really good films, and other times you get in the mood to watch a lot of trashy films. But if you do too much, it starts to get really built up to some annoying. But a lot of time I can go through days where I don't watch anything much because I'm just not in the mood. And it's like, I'm not going to force anything. But it's something you kind of have to learn. It's like some days you just don't feel it.
Yeah. So Chris and Carol, do you suffer from it, or do you get it, or do you just go through periods?
I definitely do. I will say it's even exhausting watching 5 and 6 5-star films in a row.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They tend to be kind of brilliant, and that brilliance is like, oh my God, this is exhausting to take on all the time. So it's not just that kind of thing. For me, it's the same as Peter was saying. That genre burnout I get a lot. That kind of thing of watching, say, 7 second run films in a row. that can be a bit heavy, you know.
Yeah.
That can be a bit much,
Yeah.
you know, especially when maybe not lots happening for the first hour or
Yeah.
something like that before it resolves. And that bouncing around genre to genre or even medium to medium. Like I watch a lot of TV as well, TV series. I can get my 20-minute, 40-minute hit or whatever of a continuing story that I know isn't actually going to resolve in anything by the end, but, you know, helps me break up my viewing habits.
Yeah, and I definitely get film burnout, and it's mainly down to, like Ronan was saying, life as well. It can just be tired, not enough hours in the day, feeling poorly, under the weather, whatever. And a lot of the time I can have good intentions, pop in a film, and I'll end up going on a 3-hour deep dive in YouTube, and it'll just be a couple of days of that. And then for me, usually just I always know that next great film is potentially the next one I watch, and that's what always keeps me going. And I know for my channel, I do a lot of films from the last decade, but outside of my channel, I do watch a lot of older stuff. So just mixing it all up helps a lot.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt that actually of the people that are on this call, but like you're saying there, Carl, you pop on a YouTube video, somebody has done either one of your lists or a film that you should definitely not see, as Peter would say, you know, but curiosity is piqued, or a random review, and then you go, right, well, that's added to the list because you know that's the impetus for me to go and check that film out, because while this person has clearly told me this is good, the average, it's not interesting enough for me to want to seek out, you know.
Yeah.
If any of my what the hell is this season spurs people watch the films, I apologize like instantly.
Honestly,
you're providing some kind of service.
Yeah, it's a warning. Do not make the same mistake I made.
Don't try this at home.
I'd say 9 times out of 10, I'm like, that's very solid. What the hell is this? I have seen that movie myself, and actually, I completely concur with with that assertion.
Yeah,
but that's what's so good about everybody's channels, is the fact that you will have films sitting in your pile for a while, and then somebody will do a video on it, and then that will give you the impetus, as Chris says, to go and check it out, because otherwise it would be sitting in the pile for another 6 months.
Yeah.
And that's why we do have a real good variety in this kind of community of what people do. Not everybody does exactly the same. So again, you would get YouTube burnout if everybody's channel was exactly the same as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, even with YouTube channels, it's like sometimes you've seen quite a lot of videos, so sometimes it may be a couple of days after the video go up before you watch it, and then you watch quite a few of them. It's like it's just this life. Sometimes life's in the way, and like I tend to catch Chris's videos a few days after it. I don't. It's usually not on the day, because there's other time you're doing something. It's like, well, you have time, and it's like
some people have lives, apparently. So
yeah, I know.
I tend to do what Carl does, and then you kind of sit down and you'll maybe do a couple of hours YouTube videos, you know, of one person's content or a couple of people's content that you regularly watch, and you kind of burn through it all in one go. But I have to say, like, one of the nice things, and I don't know if this is exactly the same for yourself, but helping film burnout is the fact that maybe after a batch of so many movies, I get to make a movie about it and kind of extol what I think about those films as well, and talk about kind of why I found them interesting, not interesting, or otherwise. And that helps with the burnout part as well, because, you know, there's that emoting about something is supposed to help with mental health and all of those things as it is. So
it does kind of re-energize you if you're actually doing a video on one of them, especially one that has really impressed you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing my channel for me, basically, and other people can listen, but it's for me, ultimately. It keeps me kind of sane, you know. Yeah.
It's the same with me. I mean, I always just think, well, originally, I remember when I started my channel, I was going to do just a film review, but just for me personally, I'm that impatient. I can't do that. That's why I have to do 5. And and it's like, I just know that, I don't know what it's like for you guys, but since starting my own channel, that's really helped with film burnout as well, because I'm going back and just reappreciating my own collection that much. And then not only from my own channel, but seeing all these other channels, all these films that have been in my pile, and they keep getting pushed down, and then I'll see a great video on it and think, I've got that one. That's the one I'll watch tonight. And YouTube helps with Burnout a lot for me.
Yeah, but also YouTube helps you buy stuff a lot.
Yeah, that's the
I know that's the
cycle.
Yeah, the good thing with Carl's videos is a lot of time he's actually films that are hard to find. So you might have to wait a while before you get them. Or you could do like La Flor and spend like Christ knows how much money on it that I did.
see, Carl's videos always make sure I have an on-off relationship with Cinema Paradiso, right? Because those films that I cannot get or are going to cost extortionate, there will be one copy sitting in a warehouse somewhere in Blu-ray rental service of choice. So once I get enough of those built up, I'll reactivate that. They'll come in, and then that's my way of monitoring my budget, so to speak.
Yeah.
Someone messaged me yesterday saying one of the films in my last video was called Computer Chess.
Yes, yeah.
And they messaged me saying that they couldn't find it for, I think it was like £40 odd or something.
Yeah, it's out of print indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the thing is, I got that one like disc only from when Love Films shut down.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched it, but I've got it. It's on DVD, so I've got it. I've no excuse. I've not watched it. Just like quite a few of the videos Carl does, sometimes you actually do have, you feel guilty as hell, and it's like, oh God, I should watch this.
Actually, Ronan's latest few videos have really helped, because when Ronan pulls out the ready DVD copy of a film that he's just watched, there's no point even looking for it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm guilty of physical. I need physical media. So sometimes you have to pay for that.
Yeah. But sometimes streaming does help. Like I got Prisons of Ghostland from iTunes, like instantly. And I was like, yep, that looked great. I really enjoyed watching it. So it does have advantages, but also disadvantages. Yeah,
but for me, it means it delays having to watch something. If I'm just saying, oh yeah, I'm just waiting for the physical media version, it means that it's not immediately on my backlog. I can wait a wee while before it goes to my backlog.
Yeah.
And you've got so many versions of thing in your backlog, don't you?
Yeah,
and
I'm only up to about 16 now, so.
Yeah.
Does
that include the 4Ks that just come out?
Yeah, the 4K, which I don't have 4K capabilities for, but I'm future-proofing myself when I do, obviously.
Yeah, because I was saying to them, all my steelbook in the post arrives today at some point, right? And he was saying, yeah, I've got 2 of them coming. You even 4K?
I've got the steelbook and the
what
deluxe version of the 4K. But they also have the Blu-ray, obviously.
Yeah.
12 other versions.
Yeah.
I do have a thing about the thing. That's just.
Indeed.
Yeah.
If I was doing that for every single film, then I would have a problem, but I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
It's just the one film.
Yeah. Apart from the other ones, but that's the second story.
But my problem with the Cinema Paradiso model is that if I then watch the movie and really like it, then I also have to pick up the physical copy of that as well. So it nearly is a self-perpetuating problem. They said it saved me money in one hand, but actually it ends up just costing me double the money then further down the line.
It can happen that way, but I mean, with the thing, it did happen because I've got the thing on streaming as well. Can you upgrade to 4K in iTunes? And then as soon as I saw how good the iTunes one was, I was like, okay, it's going to look even better in this. And you can add what happened after that yourself without difficulty.
The iTunes one's a good point though, because I tend to only have, like, I would say, big studio films on iTunes anyway, and you do just get those automatically upgraded to whatever the best version of that is. So it actually saves me buying that again and again and again. For the most part, Alien Films excluded for them.
Yeah, I was lucky with Chinatown, because Chinatown I got it in like the premium thing like years ago, and I had the code on that. They don't used to do codes, so I just put it on. And I didn't use iTunes. And then I started using iTunes properly. It's already up to 4K, and I was like, wow. I spent almost nothing on this disc, and now I've got a 4K version of Chinatown, and it's like, it was so cool.
Yeah. See, the problem I've got is down in Cornwall, streaming and where I live do not mix. So I don't really have that. I mean, I've got things like Netflix and Amazon Prime, but as soon as you get someone else on an iPad watching anything, one of my kids or anything, you can forget it. living in a granite cottage in Cornwall does not mix with streaming anything. So just gives me another excuse to say to my better half, I've got to have the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Or get rid of the kids, Carl. One of the two, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's. I think Chris's option is the better one.
Yeah.
Just keep building extensions.
Yeah.
Yeah, my collection goes to CD walls after a while because otherwise I'm never going to be space. Because I also have a massive lot of books as well, and it's like, Christ, there's never going to be.
Yeah, the age-old problem of space.
Yeah,
that's a bit I'm always blown away by Carl. Carl keeps on producing 5 movies every 2 weeks now. I never see any of them on the shelves behind him. So.
what it is because the shelves behind me they open up like a wardrobe, and there's another lot behind. That's what it is.
It's like a Bond villain wall with weapons behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just another row of Blu-rays. It's a whole layer. It's a cavern. It's my dungeon of films.
It's
where I keep my film collection and any YouTubers that have aggravated me.
Yeah.
Out of a system.
It does make me laugh quite often.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's like I think the work prompted into doing this was because SGSR was talking about the fact that he'd been filming Burnout, because him and Isaac Dunn are both youngsters. I think it was the first time they experienced that kind of Burnout, because I haven't tried a couple of times where I just don't feel it. It's like I'm not really, but a lot of times it is all stuff in your life going on, and it just affects, as one says, it does affect you. Sometimes you just do not feel like it, but because usually it is other stuff in your life, really, for me at least. But I think if you watch the same stuff again and again, it does create burnout. I also think that if you actually look on YouTube, a lot of times some of the kind of people who are just so obsessed with a certain kind of movie, like a Marvel movie or horror movies, it creates a kind of cynicism to the movies that is not very healthy, because they haven't expanded their range a lot, and actually kind of leads to burnout.
If you're only watching one kind of film all the time, and you're also watching films that quote unquote you should watch, instead of just doing what you feel comes naturally and watching whatever you want to watch, if you're so focused on, I should like this, everybody likes it, I've been told to like it, it's on lists, I should like it, it's like you're not giving it a fair chance, or yourself a fair chance.
Yeah, because we just talked about Deep End. Ronan made a video on, I don't like Deep End. It's like, well, if I followed the rules, I should like it. But there you go.
Yeah, but if you're going on lists of these are the films you should like, and if you don't like them, there's something wrong with you, then that's obviously going to skew your view of them as well. Because, I mean, we're all guilty of a certain director we like giving that an extra star just because it's the director, rather than being objective about it. Whereas, again, if you're going, oh, these are 200 films you should like and they're all masterpieces, then if you feel like, oh, if I don't call it a masterpiece, there's obviously something wrong with me because everybody else is. Well, I mean, that's no way to...
Yeah, but film lists are kind of young man's game, though. I think film lists is when you get started. I think as you get older, you tend to kind of go beyond that, and it's like, it's not everything's on a list, really.
Yeah, I'd like to think most of our channels are the best 3.5 star films you can watch, you know, in general, because I think there's inherent value in kind of all of those films, as you said earlier on. You know, it's kind of like, there's interest here. There's something maybe flawed about it in some way, shape, or form, whether it's budget or whatever it is. But you should check this out, and you usually get some gems there. Yeah,
and those sort of polarizing films, they're usually the ones that I always end up loving the most. Them ones that are either, you know, a 1-star or a 5-star. They're always the films that I end up, you know, they're like right at the top for me. Always have been.
Because, I mean, one of the films that really blew me away recently was The Lobster, which obviously, if you look at Amazon reviews or whatever, there's plenty of 1-star reviews for The Lobster. And it is one of those films, and I'm a little bit like you. I do like films that some people absolutely hate, because you either resonate with you or you don't. And The Lobster was certainly one that kind of blew me away, but obviously lots of people don't like it as well.
Yeah. I can appreciate the sort of ideas behind them as well, because I'd much rather see like a new director swinging and not hitting every time, but going for the, something a bit different than just plowing through a load of 2.5-star movies that are just okay and follow the same sort of
It's also, I think a lot younger reviewers don't get the idea that some films actually need those slower parts. So you think, where's this going? That you need that to get to the point of the conclusion, making an emotional experience. It can't all be going at the same pace all the time. It has to speed up, slow down, and create a kind of variance of mood. And I think that's something we're missing a lot in like Western films at the moment, is this idea of mood and pace can change a lot, and actually the experience is the whole thing, not just was it great every second of the time. And it's like, because no film is really.
No, and it's often that slow build, isn't it? That it's often that slow build that can sort of ratchet up the tension and just gives that big impact at the end. Yeah,
or not even not knowing where the film's going. Really, because sometimes the film will be going one direction and changes thing. And then we see the film, once you've seen the whole film, we realise, oh, that was intentional. And it was needed. But they don't really.
Again, I think filmmakers today should almost be given credit for, as Carol says, trying something that isn't predictable, because obviously nowadays we've pretty much almost seen it all, and 90% of films are really predictable. So even if you get a film that doesn't quite work, but it's at least trying to surprise the audience, it's kind of rare nowadays.
Yeah, I want to see ideas on screen in movies. When you've seen the amount of movies that we've all seen, probably by this stage, I want to see somebody's vision or ideas on screen. And even if they don't work all the time, it's kind of what I was thinking. I watched Creature with the Atom Brain, the Cold War Monster set from Arnold. Started working my way through that, and there's no much budget in those things at all. But there's lots of ideas on screen. There's lots of things where filmmakers said, right, I can't actually do that, but how can I represent that in some other way? But the Griffey set's exactly the same. I mean, kind of looking at that from the outside in, like something like Death versus Tartu, which is maybe about 2 sets, 2 characters, and a makeup budget of about 25 quid.
Yeah.
It's not very good, but what he had to work with, he made an hour and whatever long movie out of, and you kind of go, I admire that, worth watching.
Because I do think if you're going to dismiss that whole huge branch of filmmaking, then you're missing out on so much stuff.
Yeah,
just because they're not masterpieces.
Yeah, you miss out in the genesis of somebody's career as well, because some of those people that started off with nothing, obviously did the student films, etc., actually went on to do incredible other things.
Yeah, they always want the first film to be amazing, and it's like most first films aren't amazing. Most first films are in progress films. It's very rare. Like usually you find that if someone did Orson Welles, did an amazing first film, he'd use a theatre work before that. So he never saw all of those bad theatre works that he made, or the collaborations he was doing, and how he was taught all this stuff. It's like, no, he's a genius.
Yeah, look at Bergman and Kurosawa. They didn't hit the ground running.
Yeah, I mean, look at Kubrick. First one, Fear and Desire, which he tried to not let anyone see. Then when it was released, you see, it's fine. It's an early film, so it's not a genius film.
And nowadays, you get a lot of directors that are coming through that are directing, producing, doing the soundtrack, starring in the film, and it's like they've got no budget. They're forced to use their imagination. They're forced to come up with these ideas that, I mean, look at films like Primer and Upstream Colour, that kind of thing. If they'd have had a big budget with that and just drowned the whole thing in CGI, it would have been a completely different film. Instead, they're forced to use their creativity and their imagination, and I think it comes up with some amazing things when you're forced to do it that way.
Yeah, because that's one of the problems of modern Hollywood. You don't have to think, you can be lazy. You've got $200 million to spend. You don't have to think. Whereas
Yeah.
in the olden days, you actually had to work out how the hell we're going to do this.
Yeah, you had to
Well,
do
it's
it
like
practically a lot of time.
Yeah.
You had to figure
Well, it's
it
like
out.
when I rewatched that film Prospect that you were saying you were going to watch, there's lots of scenes in that film where there's like moon dust floating around. And to make that effect, instead of CGI, it was the director in the basement of his own home, literally throwing dust in the air, filming it, and then just overlaying it over the final film. And it looks amazing.
Yeah.
You can do lots of weird tricks that just you would never guess, but when you cut it quick enough, no.
Yeah, one of the things that I like about The Void is the fact it was practical. There's practical effects, and they kind of went back to doing practical effects, and it's like
it's also one of those things. It's those different levels of film appreciation. You know, when I was a much younger man, I wanted to be entertained all the time. You know, if I wasn't being entertained, then the film wasn't doing its job for me a lot of time. Whereas I often have the struggle when I'm rating films in Letterboxd at the end to go, well, I wasn't actually entertained through that film, but actually the film making process or was actually amazing. So do I rate this a 4-star out of 10? Do I rate it 2-star? You know, what way do you do this? Because, you know, there are different levels of looking at that film and appreciating it that maybe are not just kind of the story that's being told.
Yeah. I don't take my Letterboxd reviews that seriously, to be honest. Like, I just go by the emotional thing. It's like you shouldn't take my ratings that seriously. I'm not. It's not my final word on anything, you know.
No, I mean, let's be honest. For me, you have to watch a film at least 5 times to actually give it a proper rating. So your initial rating is, as you say, really going by emotion.
Yeah.
And the amount of times that I've rated a film, kind of come away from it going, God, I really like that movie. Then go back and see what the Letterboxd rating was and went, what? That does not even match what my memory of that film was, you know?
Yeah.
I remember the first time I watched Antichrist. I watched Antichrist, sold it the next day. A week later, I thought, what am I doing? That is an absolute masterpiece. And then bought it back again. You do need to let them sit with you, don't you, for sure?
You do.
Yeah, it should interest you. The picture for this video is from Melancholia.
Oh, great.
I was going to say, look, Lars von Trier is pretty much that director where you go, what the hell have I just watched? Throw that in the corner and never want to see it again. And then, come back.
He's in my pile of films that I'll watch when everyone's gone to bed.
Yeah. Yes,
that's why, for me, the concept of instant classic is just ridiculous. Obviously, you see it in the side of buses and film posters and stuff, but instant classic to me is just ridiculous because you have to rewatch or give it time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most of the films are classics now. We're not viewed as classics at the time. The films they thought were going to be classics at the time were stuff we don't even watch anymore.
Yeah.
Like, so I was watching this, documentary on Lon Chaney Jr. in one of those Universal box sets, and Kim Newman was talking with Lon Chaney Jr. He goes, the funny thing about his career is a lot of people he probably looked up to as actors, they want to be like, no one knows who they are anymore. And he was looked down upon, and now he's the one that everyone remembers. It's just, that's just the way it goes, really. And it's like, I think it's the same with most films. Most films that we think that are praised now is going to be the great films. No one will care. I mean, who watches American Beauty anymore? And it was praised. But you know what I mean? No. It's like most people don't watch it.
I agree with what you're saying. One of those things, I actually haven't seen American Beauty in about 5 years, and everybody tells me it ages very badly, which also puts me off the fact of rewatching it again because I do have such good memories of that film. But it's the one that always struck me, and one of the extras that I watched was that Jean-Pierre Melville, right, who made some of the greatest films in a period of time in France. Was endlessly fascinated and jealous of these kind of nondescript directors that were around the time that were achieving much more fame and infamy than he was, and it drove him insane, you know. And Test of Time looks at it and goes, well, these films stand up to anybody's that were made in the history of cinema in some ways, and yet this man was driven mad by the fact that his box office wasn't big enough.
Yeah, but I think it's the Michael Bay can make films that made a fortune, and who would watch most of the films unless you're going to do something like me, like what the hell is this? You know,
Yeah.
Those kind of movies are not really movies you're going to watch and go, oh, this is good. It's like these are utter trash.
I mean, not that the Oscars or Cannes is a judge because they're political things, but if you look back in all those award-winning films that nobody watches now.
Yeah. It's kind of insane. It's like it just shows you that a lot of people in the press have really bad taste in films. The people who are the paid critics have terrible taste, and no one ever wants to admit to that. It's like the ones they all read about are usually bloody awful, or they're a fad, and that's it.
The other thing I'd say about finding a film that you really love is the voyage of self-discovery to find that. If you find it yourself, or with very limited prompting, and you find this is great, then you take ownership of that, you know, and then it becomes like your thing. It's why an awful lot of people, you know, when the last Oscars came around, we're championing Parasite because it wasn't the big thing then. You know, it was very unusual for that to be hadn't been nominated. And then people were like, oh my God, this changed and everything. But now Parasite's almost like a parody of itself in that, oh my God, you like Parasite? How original.
Yeah. You almost want to say, no, I liked it before you did. That's mine. And you don't want it to become big in a way. You want it for yourself, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And it's like, oh, you like Parasite? Well, I like Memories of Murder. You know, if you're a real one.
Yeah.
It's a bit annoying because that's a very good film. People remember that film. And it's like it's almost like a cost to win the Oscar for anything now. It's like it's almost a sign your film will not be remembered. It's like it's going to be a curse on it in years to come. And it's also the thing with actors who win Oscars; they always went for the wrong film.
That's almost certainly true, indeed.
It's just like a lot of that stuff is just people with bad taste. You should just try and ignore it because it's not going to be anything. You should try and find your own taste, really, and which again helps you from burning out.
Yeah, so much of the Oscars are about, you know, what else was around at that time. There are years where there's just a dearth of good cinema, and then there's other years that are just like, oh, sweet mother of God, how could anybody have picked a winner from any of this?
Or they realise they haven't given somebody one, so whatever film they released that year, regardless of how bad it is, they'll get it from that.
The Departed.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring that up, but that was the one that was in my mind.
Well, I would even say, so go ahead, Carl.
No, carry on.
I was going to say DiCaprio winning for The Revenant is a bit of an example of that as well, given that he probably should have won for Wolf of Wall Street, which I think is probably his most amazing performance for me. But they had given it to him the year beforehand. It was like, right, we're stuck. We can't give him 2 years in a row. And there were other good performances that second year. So,
and then they'll say things like, well, he had it coming because he's done all these other great films. And it's like, well, which one's he getting it for then? You know, it's like one year you might have 2 or 3 that you think, well, actually, I think this one should have won or this one should have won. The following year, you'll get, say, Green Book that wins. And then is that better than the ones that came second and third the following year that you thought were, you know, it's all
absurd because it's just useless.
It sounds so political now. So.
Yeah.
I know.
Cynic. It's political. No, I wouldn't even watch it.
Yeah, I know. So I don't even pay attention. It's like, did that win?
No, I
don't care. A lot of the time I haven't seen the film that was going to win. It feels like I'm not going to watch that. It looks trash.
But that's the best bit. You can pretend or convince yourself that you really, really care about 5 films or 5 performances you haven't seen at all, just so that you pick a side. It's more important to have an opinion than generate one.
I couldn't care less, really.
They
it's
just need
if a film is trying to know, I'm not going to watch it. It's just like, nah, I don't care. I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, especially those Oscar potential films about, you know, well, you know what they're generally about.
You just start showing
you just write the script knowing that, you know, that's going to be an Oscar.
Yeah, you can see them come out, can't you? They come out at a very specific time, and it's almost like a tick box, a checklist, isn't it? A tick box. This one's, you know, got a disability in it. This one's got a, you know, it's just a tick boxing exercise half the time, isn't it?
Yeah,
but they're the roles that actors absolutely love because they know I've got a real shot at an Oscar here.
The biopic's another one. If you want to win a Best Actor Oscar, you do a biopic. You put on a fat suit or whatever it is, and make them mess up your hair, and you're
especially
nominated.
if they're an alcoholic or
that's
a
the
drug
one.
addict. Or I'm waiting for the Tourette's one.
Yeah, that'll be great. Every line beats an Oscar.
Yes.
Clips.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we're going way off track here with Oscars.
Yeah, so Burnout, is there any other tips to get back from Burnout?
I think having all these boutique labels as well are doing such good jobs, being able to find these pockets of cinema that I otherwise wouldn't have, like with Second Run, without them and without people pushing them like Chris, I wouldn't have known that they exist. And I know now I trust them enough now to be able to just pluck one off their website every couple of weeks and know that it's probably going to be fantastic. And I've absolutely loved their stuff. So being able to find all of these pockets of cinema that I knew nothing about, I think's great, and that really helps as well.
Yeah. I think each label having its own identity, to a certain point, really helps that, because you're like, I'm in the mood for a Second Run movie, I'm in the mood for an Idiot Films movie. Roughly what you're getting.
Well, the Second Run was actually the inspiration for this actual podcast, because the original reason the podcast was because both Ronan and I had both bought a lot of Second Run films, Eastern European films. It was like, well, I want to do one this, and so does he. So why don't we do one together and just do a podcast on them? And we proceeded not to do that and do other things.
Still in the backlog. I've still got like 12.
That was the inspiration for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it comes back to that emoting thing, isn't it? You've got this interest level. You've watched all these films, but nobody else is talking about them, or nobody else is. You don't have any converse about that, so you generate it yourself, and you kind of say, right, let's do this then.
Yeah.
The Second Run, an indicator. Again, as Carol says, it's better that all these boutiques aren't just homogenous and all releasing the same things. If I do a random review on an indicator and I say this is a classic indicator release, you kind of know what that means. Both good and bad.
Yeah.
And the same with Second Run. Obviously, stuff like Vampire Kudichuk, which I keep coming back to, which Chris highlighted. There's nowhere else you would find that. And Second Run are brave for releasing that kind of thing, because who's going to buy that? But there also is a market, and hopefully that continues, because their films are just, they're challenging.
How can you recommend that film as well?
Exactly.
It's just.
And we did a video on Beauty and the Beast, which was just amazing. That just absolutely blew me away.
I started to watch that one.
Yeah, for me, it's even better than the Cocteau one, and that's saying something, because the Cocteau one I absolutely love, but that one is just amazing.
I love that he just wanted to do something completely different. So there's a good thing for Burnout as well. You watch ostensibly the same movie again, but with two different visions. And because Hertz was so caught up with the idea that Cocteau had already done this perfectly, I'm not going to do what he did. So let's take a total left turn and do this Gothic thing.
Yeah. And then they just did, let's do a musical version of what Cocteau did and put in lots of colours. And then let's make it live action.
Yeah. But those boutique labels, that does kind of refresh you, and you're always going to see something. I just watched The Indicator Day of the Dolphin with George C. Scott and trained dolphins that speak English. I mean, not a lot of people, that's not going to go in Criterion, but it's still an interesting, quirky film.
Yeah, but he's not a George C. Scott fan.
Yeah, I'm not a George C. Scott fan, even though I've got like 20 of his films. But again, if you're only looking at a certain kind of film, you're just not going to be interested in Indicator, you're not going to be interested in Second Run, and that is just closing off so much good stuff.
It generates a question for Carl, actually, because you do watch a lot more, I'd say, modern releases than maybe the rest of us here. If they're not boutique releases, how do they come onto your radar then? And then for you then to recommend them to the likes of us?
A lot of them are just films I've had going back years. They might be 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, but so I've done it for so long now. It's just you just get to know the directors you like and getting their second, third, fourth releases and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm always just, if I'm not watching a film, I'm looking at what's coming out and looking at film festivals and just picking up the sort of niche types of films I like. And it's very rare now that I used to a lot. I used to buy films and sell them. It's very rare now that I sort of buy things that I don't like, so I don't, it's very rare that I'd have to sell anything on. So yeah, it's just following what I know I like, really.
Yeah, because even with blind buys now, because you've been doing it for so long, you do kind of have an idea of what a blind buy is going to be for you. So to me, I'm never really a blind buy and, oh, that's terrible. It's generally you kind of have a fairly good judgment of what you're actually going to like.
Yeah. Done with videos about every film, if you know who's doing what. It's never purely a blind buy. It's always somebody,
Yeah.
Like if I'm doing an Asian film, who's probably done it? Asian film enthusiast has probably done it. Some probably a rough idea whether I'm going to like it or not. And since my taste is close enough to theirs, that it's like they say it's good, I'm going to give it a shot. And if it's anything that's an indicator, I'll listen to Ronan stuff and see. Even though I would buy some of that stuff myself, there's other ones I won't. Yeah. And there's like just everybody who does their own little niche thing. I always like, oh, that's a Chris thing. Or see if he's done that video. That's a Carl thing. See if he's covered that in one of his top fives. Or Dion.
Yeah.
The really new modern stuff and talk about some of that stuff. So it's like there's always someone you can see. They're going to cover that. So also I don't really need to cover it because they've covered it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it kind of is hard to actually come across a complete blind buy, isn't it? Because there's with YouTube now, it's that many niche pockets of people doing what we do. You can always find someone that spoke about it. I was looking at a film the other day that I bought called Jumbo, and it was about a girl that falls in love with a carousel. And I thought, that sounds interesting. Coming from Cornwall, I'm used to livestock maybe, but not not a carousel. So I had a look on Dion's channel, and that's where I must have remembered it from. He'd done a review on it, and it's an amazing film. But there's always something in the back of my mind that thinks I know that from somewhere, and then I just got to find out where. And
because one thing I've said before in the past is like most of my videos get views over years rather than the first month or two of really look at any numbers of the first month or two of my videos, they're always really low. They're like, I've got one or two I did 3 weeks ago. I started at 5, but then suddenly they spurt up slowly over time, and it's like, what the hell happened? It's just people getting curious and they just look and see, oh, I've done a video on that. But sometimes it takes a while because it's just like no one's interested. So I think I cover so obscure films sometimes. It's like I assume that people have seen them and they haven't. And no one watched the video and it's like, well, why not? And it's like, well, no one's seen it apart from me. That's why they're not watching.
And then if you don't do spoilers in your reviews, then you can still watch them. Without having seen them.
I'm going to try to do a new thing when I come back. Is like first half is non-spawn, second half is it's just going to be easier because I think it causes confusion otherwise.
Plus, there are lots of films that you just can't talk about without spoilers.
Yeah.
So you should do a podcast on it. So people know exactly what they're getting into.
Yeah. Because sometimes the best stuff is in the spoilers, essentially.
Yeah.
It's definitely true. One of the other things that strikes me about Burnout as well, and again, we all buy a lot of physical media. You can sometimes get caught in this trap of buying more than watching, and that creates the burnout effect as well. where you just your pile that you have sitting beside the TV or beside your player just starts getting larger and larger and larger, and you're like, I'm actually overwhelmed by options here, and therefore I stick on 10 minutes of everything and swap it out for the next disc or otherwise. So I often talk about having to get through the first 20 minutes of a movie to kind of settle myself and then enjoy the rest of the movie after that,
Yeah.
I used to feel that, but I don't care anymore.
I do that a lot. I get to the point where I, let alone my wife, I do my own head in. I could pick a film, put it in, and then think, no, this other 2 or 3 that I was going to watch, I've made a mistake. I need to watch one of these instead. I'll swap it. And then I think, I should have stuck with that original one, swap it. And then before I know it, half an hour's gone by and I've still not started. And it's like, I just need to stick with what I'm putting in.
Or it's either that or you just stand or sit and just stare at it and just stare at the pile. And then you realise you've just wasted an hour just staring at the pile.
Yeah.
I think I'm healthier than you lot. I think I'm actually healthier. I've just given up now and just watch what I feel like.
Yeah, I'm at peace with the fact I'll be dead before I actually clear my backlog. I've kind of made peace with that.
That's going to make a great video, though, Ronan. Like, that'll be amazing. From Beyond the Grave.
I finally finished it, but I've been dead 12 years.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be good. If you go before me, I know I have 12 years of content to catch up with.
Yeah. No, I've had a weird thing, though, is like, if I'm watching one and I'm not going to watch 2 films a night, is I'm thinking of the second one. I'm going to watch the first one.
Yeah.
That's my big problem more than choosing. It's much more like I'm just going to give up. I've given up trying to overthink that, but this is like what I'll watch next after this is, and sometimes drives you nuts.
Especially if that first one's not as engaging.
Well, that's when you have more time to think about it, though.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's really engaging, you don't care. You'll
laser focused.
Yeah.
I don't think I've done that in a long time because I tend to rinse the discs that I get now. I'll at least make it through to the special features or whatever's on the disc before I'll go next, which nearly always puts a full stop on that movie watching period. You know what I mean? That day that I watched it. I
mean, I suppose the downside on boutique labels is if there is a retrospective documentary that's actually feature length, you find yourself putting that on and then you realise I could have watched another film in that time. But some of them are really good.
Yeah. It's just
I can't remember who it was that suggested it, but someone suggested taking all of the booklets out of the boutique labels, the nice booklets they come with, and putting them like on your bedside table. And I've been doing that, and that's a great idea. Such a simple little idea. Just find myself reading them every night now, and then you set up for the next. You can pull out a few and think that's what I'm going to watch next. That sounds great.
It was film blogger Sam actually said that one. It was Sam. Sam suggested that, and I thought that's such a great idea because I have a tendency to maybe start the next film while reading the last booklet, and you just kind of caught with that. What'll I do? But it was a great idea.
I'm much more I'm either in a film mood or an extras mood. I don't mix and match. Just like either I'm going to watch the film or I'll be interested in extras. I'm not. I just can't do. I need to be mind work. I can't do both at the same time. Really.
But that's a bit clear in the headspace, isn't it? Managing the burnout is like get to know what way you think and what way you consume content, so you kind of just start to regiment yourself as you go through.
Yeah, because that's the thing. If I'm watching films, I'm probably not watching YouTube that much. When I'm not watching films, that's when I'll catch up on YouTube. Really.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be. I can't really switch because I'm much more. I'm into film. I'm into films. Really.
Yeah.
And YouTube's the same problem. Sometimes there's just way more content than you ever have time to consume. So it's like, I'd often say Dice Guy's videos are amazing, but there's so many of them that I just can't always have this guilt of like, I just can't watch all of it. It's amazing content, but I just can't. I have to pick and choose nearly.
Caught up with Daisuke stuff for a while, but it's just because of that.
I don't think he expects you to watch everything.
I know he doesn't, but it's that guilt. It's nearly like the collector's guilt. It's nearly like the watcher's guilt to kind of say, like, this person's content, I want to support it. I want to engage with it. But it's just so much of it. And, I did last night was one of my dice guy nights. I just kind of did a lot of them in a row, and I was like, these are all amazing.
I could just listen to him speak for hours as
Oh.
well. He's great, isn't he?
Was amazing.
Yes.
So, what's everybody's? Say in the past week, what has been your little bit to regulate yourself? What's the thing that you've thrown in that's been different?
Well, I've been
mix it
going
up.
through the Godzilla box set, so
The Criterion one,
that's a
yeah.
change of pace. Yeah, that's obviously been a change of pace, and it's nostalgia because I used to watch them. I think they were on the BBC or Channel 4 at one point, so it's nice to see them in lovely prints, and they are a lot of fun. They're obviously not perfect, but again, that's a different mindset when you're watching them.
Interestingly, all a known quantity as well. When you go to stick on the next one, you know what you're going for, so you're actually going back to the well, so to speak, to say, right, the bit that will be my chill out, or the bit that make me relax is something that I sort of know about going in.
Yeah, because obviously I've been in an Italian vein recently, so that's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, I think for me it's just having all the different sort of nice box sets. So just knowing that am I in the mood for plucking out one from one of the last Arrow box sets I got, or an older film, so I've been all over the place this week. I got the Columbia Classics set,
Volume 2.
and I sold a couple of those that I didn't want, and so I watched Oliver with my kids, which they loved, and Taxi Driver. Nice to see that on 4K, and then watching a few new ones like Zola and this Jumbo. Just been all over the place. I started watching the couple more from the Years of Lead set. So I just love having the different sets to be able to just I'm in the mood for something, a bit of Italian trash this week, or that kind of thing.
Years of Lead's so good.
Yeah.
Really enjoy it. And I often say that's my kryptonite is box sets, because I start so many of them, but very rarely actually get to the last film, because I'm doing exactly what you say, Carter, which is like, I know if I need a change of pace, that's the one I'm going to,
Yeah.
So Chris, so what else have you been doing to break it up?
So my ones, aside from making my way around the box sets, I've fallen this little children's film foundation bit. The BFI, I've been doing those for a while. These kind of hour and a half long, what would have been Saturday afternoon kid films. They're kind of fun. I mean, there's nothing weird and wonderful about them other than anarchy for the kids against the adults, because all the adults are stupid and can't make good decisions. But you occasionally see the one I watched last night was Anoop and the Elephant, right? Which is just about it's one of those things, because these films are made in the 70s, you kind of go, some of these themes haven't aged that well. Like the kids are celebrating keeping the elephant in captivity rather than letting it free, and like we're supposed to support them. But it has like Linda Robson in it as a very young girl, as Phil Daniels as a very young boy in it. And these things are kind of interesting, the whole thing. And they're only, that one was like 50 minutes long or something. So they're the bit that if I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered with anything serious or even that I have to think about, those children's film foundation films have been the bit for me.
All right. So for me, it's been, I think I mentioned before, I watched 300 Rise of an Empire last night. So I was just in the mood for stupid. That was a really moronic film, but it was just what I needed after something serious. And I've also been playing the Avengers game on PS4, just for that silliness that's been helping, because I've been watching stuff and I've been watching all these Roger Corman pro films for next month for videos. So I've been doing lots of watching stuff. So it's like my silliness has been just been beating people up as a Hulk in a video game, which sometimes helps.
Yeah, having that mixed medium really does help, because I'm struggling to get in with one of those burnout phases, actually, where I'm finding it hard to sit down and game for any more than half an hour, 45 minutes, or as long as the Hades run ends. But it'll come back. You know what I mean? I'll just keep chopping through something. grab me and I'll go and do it at some later stage.
Yeah, because I've been the same with games this year. I just haven't been up to them. Then again, I played Hitman 3, and it took me like a weekend, pretty much. I just got into it. So, but if I get a good video game, it kind of gives me a bit of a breather from watching movies. But it has to be a good one, though. I can't really force it.
I'm just waiting for Horizon Zero Dawn, the second one,
Yeah.
February.
Yeah.
And then we won't see him for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, I might not be making videos for a while until Horizon Zero Dawn. So.
Yeah, that's. But I mean, I've been kind of I've been getting back into more serious stuff because I took a week or two off. I tend to watch trash and I take a week or two off, and then get myself back into things. And now I'm getting back into it because I know I've shot some videos of other ones I'm going to do that that haven't been uploaded yet or haven't been released. So I'm slowly getting back into it again. So I'm watching better films again. So
I need to shoot a video. I've got like 6 watch lists planned out, and at that point I'm like, right, I'm going to dump at least 4 of these and just decide what I'm going to do with it. Because just
I've got this file on my computer always of things I've watched that'll be good for videos.
Talking about.
And the list is huge. The amount of stuff I've watched that are perfect for doing videos on. I haven't done them. And sometimes when I've done that, sometimes I've seen a film, it's been so long since I've seen it, and I haven't done a video, usually go, well, quite wait to delete it now because I've forgotten half of it. It's like, but I do it that way. I actually just have a list of stuff. So it helps me also list what I see, because I've got this list of what I'm watching every day. Sort of rough idea what I've been watching in case I've forgotten something that I should do something on. Because I'll never remember otherwise. If I don't write it down, I won't remember.
Real part of Letterboxd for me, yeah.
I think the problem I've got now is because I'm going every 2 weeks. It's I can pull out my next 5 and then I think I'll watch something else and think, no, I want to do this 5 instead. And now I'll keep changing. And now, whereas before I'd have to lock it in and get straight onto it. Now I've got the time to, and I keep changing it, or I'll get a film, and it's like some films are really hard to sort of pigeonhole, aren't they? And it's like, what do I do for this one? Top 5 films where someone eats a really hot potato, or it's like.
Oh, you should definitely do that, Carlo. That would be amazing.
Actually, what was the film? Bellatar. The what was that?
Tango.
No, the other one. What's that film? Oh, it's gone now. The bloke with the beard and the what's it called?
I think I've watched Bellatar movies, so I can't place it.
I haven't watched any Bellatar films.
He was.
I can throw a whole load at you here.
Yeah,
Sharon Horse.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, that's it. Chorin Horse. That's got the best man eating a hot potato scene in ever. There you go.
There's your video. Top 1 films that I've
yeah.
I'm trying to think of another one. Honestly, you've ruined.
That's
silence because everybody's thinking about hot potatoes.
But that's going to be my mission now. I'm going to have to do a top 5.
It could be chips. They're hot potatoes.
Strange European films with odd eating things in the last decade. It's
There's no shortage of content to be made. We all have this thing of, right, I'd like to do a little series on this. And then the practicalities come and you go, no, I just don't have the time for this, or I don't have the energy for this.
Yeah, I've actually found I put this pressure on myself now to, the series will take time. It'll take time, that's it. It doesn't have to do it all within about 2 months. Which I used to do, and it became this thing where you sort of lose the joy of making the videos. And it's like now it's like I just do it the way I want to do it, and I'll do it and I feel like doing it, and it may be gaps. But because if I set up something on the YouTube thing, you want to see my videos in Japan or my videos in Rebirth or something, you can go to see them, and I'll get there in the end because it's just like it just makes it better. Like the Malik series, I've done tons of Malik videos, I've got a few more to do, but it's like I'll just do them as I do them. I'm not getting too stuck on them.
It takes the pressure off when invariably nobody watches them for a while at all. You know, when you put all this time and effort, if you were rushing it out, you'd be like, right, well, how many people have watched this? And when you take your own time, I find it's just like, well, I don't actually care if anybody watches it. You know, I enjoy the process of talking about that or thinking about what I was going to say about that more so than the discourse that it generates.
Yeah, plus, you don't, if it's on YouTube for a while, people will watch it. You just have to have patience sometimes. It's just like, don't beat yourself too much up. Well, I did find my videos I was doing too many recently. It's like I'm going to cut down a little bit. It's too. I mean, even I wouldn't watch all of these if I was watching my channel. It's like, nah, I need to kind of cut it down slightly. I'm going too far.
Yeah, I'm not that organized, so I just do whatever I feel like doing. To be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still waiting to do part 2 of Jodorowsky, El Topo, because I've just been putting it off, but I'll get to it eventually. But
yeah.
That's the nice thing about having people that kind of post on a schedule. So Carl obviously does in every 2 weeks, but I got last night and I was like, it's 9 o'clock and Ronan hasn't got a video up on a Friday.
Yeah,
where is it?
Yeah.
Sometimes you try, but it's just like you're not feeling it.
Because I've been watching all these pro films from Roger Corman. I've been going through them for the last week or two, and it's like I'm actually maybe about through them. I've seen almost all the serious ones. I've got to go into the comedy ones now, and it's like it does become a bit of a grind, even though you're really enjoying them, because it's like you've got a kind of deadline in your head you want to do them for. Even though I'm really enjoying them, but I actually watched them as one, they're better than I remember, and two, but if you project them, they're more depressed than you remember as well. And it becomes this kind of thing. It's like, I know I'm going to get through these. I don't know it kills me. I'm getting through these. And I don't like doing that grind because I always find I'm not as good, but I'm enjoying watching them. But it's like, it's a bit falling back into old habits that I've kind of avoided recently.
Yeah, because if you put pressure on yourself to have a schedule and it's like, I must do this, then your content's not going to be as good. I mean, I don't have that problem because my content's not that good anyway. So it's like, but if you put more pressure on yourself, I must be rigid. I need to release a video, then you're just going to rush out and it's not that good.
Yeah, no, because that's why I want to do one video. I don't want to do like series. I just want to do one big video.
Yeah.
So I need to watch them all. Because it's just like, I think it's going to be better if just do one. I just think the way the films are structured, it won't be as good if I just do them individually. I have to do one. Oh,
because you would just do like 5-minute videos in each one because they're not really.
So it creates this thing, but I'm getting to the comedies now. Yeah. So it should be fun. But I really enjoyed them. It's just like how you pace them out.
Yeah.
So it becomes a kind of but we're into habits I haven't done for a while though.
So we've talked about burnout and perhaps things to get out of burnout, but do you guys have regular kind of go-to comfort food films or comfort watching films that you just go to when you're feeling down or whatever?
I have at the moment Ted Lasso as my comfort every Friday. If anybody's watching Ted Lasso on Apple TV, it's a half-an-hour hug every single week. That is kind of like the start of my weekend. Like it gets released weekly. So I would say TV more often than a film, unless that film is on TV all the time. So there's plenty of those films that fit in that category. The type of film that when you're scrolling through, wondering what to watch, it's on, and therefore there goes the next an hour and a half of your life. Where you go, but it's TV shows that generally do that, and Ted Lasso at the moment is definitely that show for me.
Yeah, there's one film I've got. It's a sort of Precinct 13. Is when I need a reboot. That film always does it for me. Just kind of as one of those films. One of my favorite films. When I just need to do that, that film will get me through. A lot of Howard Hawks movies as well because they're fun, but they're also really good films. So that kind of thing. I guess a case of how Paul Pressburger films, where there's a joy to the filmmaking that actually lifts your spirits. Or sometimes I'll even watch bits of films from which I like watch a bit of Tales of Hoffman or something that will just kind of get me back up. I mean, for TV, I mean, there's certain shows I've seen the episodes so many times. I've seen Seinfeld episodes so many times. Yes, Minister, 30 Rock or Community, stuff like that, that they will really help me kind of get through. I'm a Doctor Who fan, so every so often I'll hit a Doctor Who binge as well. So it's like there are stuff you've got there that actually helps, but for films themselves, just certain directors like John Carpenter, Howard Hawks, something that they kind of get me back up. Even a bad John Carpenter film will still do the job on me. Even a kind of weak one like Ghost of Mars, I'll still get enjoyment out of that, and it will lift my spirits.
Yeah, for me, it's things like Flash Gordon, or The Thing, or Clue, or The Third Man, or Once Upon a Time in the West. When you're feeling down for Once Upon a Time in the West, because that is just pure cinema, and that just is the kind of ultimate palate cleanser, and it's just that's what cinema is all about. But it's
Good short movie like Once Upon a Time in the West. That's it. Yeah.
168 that feels like about 88.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true.
But it's stuff like that just puts a smile on your face, and they're great palate cleansers.
Yeah, the Musketeer films as well. No, the Richard Lester one, 3 and 4 Musketeers. Just watch them as one film. That kind of get you back into it.
And for me, I think it's a lot of older westerns. I used to watch a lot of westerns with my granddad.
Yeah.
So I can always remember not so much the John Wayne ones. It was more, Once Upon a Time in the West. Even things like One-Eyed Jacks. Just some amazing. He even had the proper. Used to get me to watch the proper spaghetti westerns, and now being able to get all them back on, being picked up by all these boutique labels doing amazing restoration jobs on them. I've loved it. So I've got The Great Silence,
that's
all these ones. Yeah. So I always turn to them.
Yeah, I do have a question for you. How good is your knowledge of the TV show Champion the Wonder Horse?
Poor.
You ever heard of it?
Oh, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was lost.
Yeah.
No, it was an old show. It was always on TV when we were kids. It was also on the BBC Two at 9 in the morning. I was joking.
Yeah. No, my granny and granddad's house was the Cowboys and Indians house. Like whenever you opened the door of their house, it was blurring right across the house. Rawhide or Bonanza or something was going. And it was honestly, nobody could speak in the room because the TV was up so loud, and it was just that incessant din of pew pew, etc.
Bonanza and High Chaparral.
Yeah, indeed. A good memory, so. And
so if you guys are sort of hit with burnout, would you sort of consciously try and get yourself out of it, or do you just sort of embrace it and think, I've got it again, it's probably going to stick with me for a few days, just go with it? Or do you think, well, no, I can try and get myself out of this and turn to this or this?
I tend just to kind of go out of it and let it run its course and do other things. And for me, it never really lasts that long anyway. And like I said, it's more about life rather than the actual films themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I let it run as well.
I'm thinking, I was stuck on, was it last weekend? Tears of Hoffman for the first time. You just mentioned it there. First time watch. I watched it for 45 minutes, and I was honestly like treacle on my brain. It was going slow. And as somebody that's even a musical theatre or opera fan, I'd go to the thing. It just wasn't working, and I just had to stop it. To stop it. But I went back then about 2 days later and watched the second 45 minutes, which was no different from the first 45 minutes. But my appreciation for it and my enjoyment of it actually was night and day compared to what had happened beforehand. So it was that kind of thing of just I'm not going to force myself to go through this because this is only going to make things worse. I'm going to go do something else. I'll stick something else on. I'll play a game. I'll go out to the shop, sometimes in the car, something that gets me out of that malaise. To go and do that, I think. Yeah. What about yourself, Con?
Similar to Ronan, I think, really. I let it kind of run its course, and 9 times out of 10, it's just because I need a decent night's sleep, or, I need to get a few other work things done, or it just could be just life, yeah. Just it always never lasts long, couple of days at the most, and I'm back hard at it.
Yeah. I mean, as we know, there's films that as soon as you put it on within the first 10 minutes, like Beauty and the Beast with Hertz, by the time the intro happened and the titles happened, I knew I was going to like it. And then there's other films that it takes half an hour, it takes 45 minutes, but you keep kind of going with it. Then there's other films, as soon as the first 10 minutes, you kind of know, I'm going to enjoy this, and it flies by.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird though. I think sometimes you don't know why you're not enjoying it. You're just not.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it is your mood. And it's also, what if I found, because every time I use the projector, the idea is like you get reinvigorated watching the film on the bigger screen again. Because I think in small screen, it really does drag out. There's certain films that don't work as well in the small screen. This don't. They're not really made for that. And it's like you can meander through the plot a lot more on a small screen than you could in the big screen. The big screen actually makes you much more invested. So I think that's the thing, is I'm watching this tough TV all the time. I think it can kind of take away your joy of film. But because you don't have that many great films in cinema at the moment, it's like, where do you find these great films that would actually reinvigorate yourself?
Yeah.
That becomes a problem.
Cinema's an interesting one because there's no hitting the reset button when you sit down in the cinema, and going, you're there for the duration. I haven't walked out of a movie yet, came close, but I'm going to stick with it to the end. So you kind of, well, in my case, it's very much right. Am I sure I'm not going to fall asleep? I'm not too tired before I book the tickets. And as long as that sequel, then we'll go for it. And I tend to go see a certain type of film in the cinema rather than, something that I think is maybe going to be, super heavy, or that the person with me isn't really going to enjoy. I think that plays an awful lot of part of that community experience of going to the cinema.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember I fell asleep watching The Irishman in the cinema, and no reflection on the film. It was just I just shouldn't have gone at the time I did, but I suppose it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, I once left the cinema because I was ill. It was a Will Ferrell movie. I was actually ill. Like 20 minutes, I was like, if I don't leave, I'm going to puke on somebody. I better leave. I better
Ferrell
leave.
wasn't there, so
yeah. So I actually left, and I went into.
Was it one of those ones you were trying to?
For a week. So it was like, I was ill.
You were like, I've got to get this out of my system. I know what will do it. Will Ferrell. 45 minutes. I'll run the toilet and I'll feel better for the experience.
And I didn't even know I was ill until I started watching the film, and then suddenly we clicked in. It was like, oh god, I'm feeling ill. And then 20 minutes, and I'm like, I'm going to be sick. It was like, I've never felt that before in my life. It was just so weird. It's the only time I've ever walked in a film. And I saw the film and I liked the film. It was just like I could not. I was just feeling absolutely horrible.
It wasn't the tagline of the film that will make you sick.
Yeah.
I haven't fallen asleep in the film. That's but the Irishman would probably send me to sleep. That one. That's I was not a fan.
I still haven't got past the first 20 minutes.
I was gonna say it's given you lots of time and opportunity to fall asleep in it. So
yeah.
Where to go?
Yeah.
But
I'm quite good. One thing I've noticed, like something that's set in Tango or something, it's like 7 hours. I'm quite happy just to float along the film if I'm enjoying it. I don't really need tons of stuff to happen in the film. I'm quite happy to just to interpret as I go. I don't really that need to actually have to fill in the gaps all the time. So what people see as a boring film would never have performed for me. Really.
I found that with Christ Stopped at Eboli. I just found that so engrossing, even though nothing really happens for 4 hours, but it was just the feel of it and the mood of it was just wonderful.
It's nicely broke up into 4 episodes on the Criterion channel, though. So I tended to watch 1, then I watched 2, then I watched 3 and 4 back to back, because that's what happens all of those movies. Like Brighter Summer Day, what's the first hour, what's the second hour, and then I just need to finish it.
Yeah, I mean, there was the 9-hour Human Condition, which I found I watched in 3 parts, and that actually worked really well.
It did.
Because once you get invested with that character, it just flies by.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it as well, for me, comes with time or age. I think if I'd have watched some of these films that I watched when I was 20 years ago, say like Once Upon a Time in Anatolia, quite a slow police procedural, driving around looking for a body that's been buried. Not much happens. Watched it, a month or two ago, loved it, completely engrossed. I know if I'd have watched that 20 years ago, I'd have turned it off after 20 minutes. I wouldn't have even given it the chance.
I'd have been quite upset that it had wasted my time. If it's a long film, you'd be like, why did somebody do this to me?
Yeah.
I've always liked those films. I've never really had a problem with. Probably just I'm my head's away most of the time. I don't know, but I've always quite liked sitting back and watching a film that took its time. It's never really been an issue. So I can quite happily watch a really long film if I'm interested. If it has been a good director.
Yeah.
If it's a bad director, just mean you watch a lot of stuff. It's like, there needs to be a point of view. There needs to be something that actually gets your attention.
No, I was definitely much more Carl. Like I just watched Jean Dielman, obviously, for French cinema thing. And honestly, if I had watched that as a 20-year-old man, I'd have been so angry and upset. no matter the resolution, I would have thought you could have just shown me the end of it, and that would have been fine after 2 hours ago. Yeah, that'd have been fine. I get it, but you missed out on everything else that happens, and the slow burn, etc. that goes through that.
So seeing no patience.
No patience, or I wanted to be entertained all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was not in the mindset where, either atmosphere was building, or characters were building, or something was happening there that I couldn't see, or even like I said before, that the director was doing something with the camera, or there was these little cues in the background, or I would have missed all of that because I'd have been wanting the story to drive forward or entertain me all the time.
Yeah.
You're basically an Italian film fan in the 70s. That's
Well,
things must be happening every 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So do you guys get like I know like obviously we can all bring a lot of our own baggage to a film, whether that's just tiredness or even just distracted, or if you watch a film that you sort of go in knowing that you should like it, whether it's the director or recommendations, but you don't get on with it, would you be happy then just to leave that to the side for good? Or would you think, I should have liked that film and I didn't, and then go back to it at some point?
I mean, if it's a director that I like, I'll kind of go back to it. And generally, I don't tend to get rid of films. I mean, I have said once I clear my backlog, which will be about 2026, I will actually go through and get rid of some stuff. But in general, I don't really get rid of stuff. So I would always give things a second chance. The only film that I've really not liked, which was a blind buy, was the Florida Project. I actually switched that off after about an hour because the characters were just so, I just disliked them so much. Apart from Willem Dafoe. And I haven't went back to that, but I will go back to it at some point. But in general, I'll always watch it a second time and give it a go, especially if it's a director that I'm a fan of.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot at some point. I mean, I'm well aware enough that sometimes my mood's wrong for a film, and maybe I've seen it wrong, and I might give it a chance. So I'm actually open to that, but I'm not going to like a film just because it's a director. Like, if they've made a film I don't like, it's still a film I don't like. I'm a massive Kubrick fan, but I'm not a big fan of Clockwork Orange. And I've never really warmed to it, and I never will probably. It's just there's something about that film I don't like that much.
It's the nihilistic nature of that rubs me the wrong way as well. I have to say, it's just too dark or something. That's just I think
it's a bit smug. That film just feels a bit smug to me. So it's just like, and I felt it was below Kubrick. So I never warmed to that. So I'm actually okay with not warming to a film, a director I love, because there's a lot of films that they make I do love. So it's that's just what I don't like. So
I mean, I don't love him as much as I used to, but obviously I do like Tarantino. But for me, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was deathly dull. For me, it was his dullest film. And I mean, I'll watch it again at some point, but
it's interesting because I was going to bring that up earlier about the build and the slow build of a film because it is overly long. There's no doubt about that. But I kind of came away from that literally because I was sitting in cinema beside a friend of mine about 20 minutes before the end going, this has been on for a very long time. And this is an 18. And literally as soon as the thought came into my head, the screen exploded with violence. And I was like, right, well, it's definitely an 18. But I think part of that is for effect. You know, I think it was very much to have that contrast. And maybe watching that at the first time, depending on how your mood goes through the movie, you do lose that. And that's why going back to watch it. But it probably is lesser Tarantino. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But
I like that one, actually. That's one
I did like it, but it's
I know, because I really had a problem with the period he did from like the Glorious Bastards and Django movie. Both of them I just thought were like really stupid in lots of ways, and they really got on my nerves. It was like I've started to do my Django rant. I've started to get to Django. When I do it, if you're a Django fan, you will not like this video.
But I think Tarantino's going to be an interesting director to talk about in 20 years because I think he'll be very polarizing in what he does. Because he obviously, his whole shtick is that he's ripped off every movie that he's ever enjoyed himself. So he's just re-representing a lot of that material.
Yeah.
But I think he has enough of his own style with which he does it that I think it gives him enough interest to kind of grapple onto.
But then you could argue his best film isn't from his script, which is Jackie Brown.
Yeah.
Which is his best film.
Actually, his deepest film, like, emotionally, not just going based on things that are cool. It's actually got emotional depth to it, and it's not his script. Well, he wrote the script, but it's not his story.
Do you think he's going to stick with what he says, and his next film is going to be his last? Yeah,
because he's vain. And he wants to think of his perfect career, and there's no such thing as a perfect career. I much prefer stuff like Soderbergh, who actually seems to be trying to do an imperfect career and doing his own thing. And
he's doing a great job.
What?
He's doing a great job.
Yeah, he does all sorts of stuff, and it makes a messy career, but it's interesting. I much prefer that than the Tarantino model where everything has to be perfect, and you know that quite a lot of the films aren't perfect. You know, it's like
Tarantino also wants the attention of people probably begging him to come back and do one more.
Yeah.
And if everybody just ignored them, it would be quite funny.
Yeah.
I think that's it, isn't it? If no one said a thing, like no one mentioned it to him again, no one asked him in interviews, he'd be at home like, oh, I've got to make it. He'd do it. He'd come back and do another one.
Yeah, so he just wants the attention.
Yeah.
Somebody will shower him with enough money from do it. That's what my feeling about it. Even if it's a Marvel movie or it's, you know, somebody will give him enough money that he goes, well, I can always say this wasn't really mine because maybe it wasn't my script or something like that.
It's just nonsense. So it's nothing about art. It's just ego.
Yeah.
And it's this 9-10 film thing he's done. He's written and contributed to loads more movies that actually are attributed to him. You know, like True Romance, well, being a Tony Scott movie, is pretty much seen as a Tarantino movie more than it is a Tony Scott film. So he's not counting that one, whereas just about everybody else is.
Yeah.
You know, he's the thing is, I just think in 20 years, will he be looked upon as interesting from this period, or will other directors have taken over from that thing? Because I mean, like Wes Anderson's interest director, and he just keeps going. And you're like, Wes Anderson's career is more interesting than Tarantino's one now. And it's like Paul Thomas Anderson as well. It's like there's lots of really good people who they'll keep making movies, and they'll probably overtake Tarantino and people's intention. Because once he's gone for 5 years, I bet it'll become that no one's paying attention to him anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It is interesting because go ahead. So
no, go on, Chris. It's all right.
I was going to say Wes Anderson's an interesting one for me because I adore Wes Anderson movies, but I have a feeling that in say 20 or so years' time, his movies are going to be considered cookie cutter because he kind of did the same thing again and again and again and again. And as brilliant as I think he is, I just wonder if there's not the breadth of travel or distance of travel across all of his entire movies that separate them from each other. That people go, maybe there may be more curiosities that fall into something.
Plus, I think as far as critical analysis or subtext and depth, I'm not sure there's that much there with Wes Anderson films. I mean,
Yeah.
I do like them as well. They're beautifully crafted. But again, I think 20 years after his career, I think, like you say, he might just be looked back as this quirky little director that made nice little films. But I don't think from a critical point of view.
Yeah, but look at Hitchcock, though. Hitchcock pretty much made almost his stuff is actually fairly shallow, and they love him and they'll go over his stuff because it's easy to write about.
Yeah.
So many times they make it the same thing. It's like, he's easy to write about, so we'll just write about him rather than someone who's more difficult. Like, look
For
at
me,
Hitchcock,
obviously-
all that stuff in Orson Welles is barely touched, apart from saying Citizen Kane's great. And Orson Welles is such a more interesting director. Michael Powell is barely touched as a director, and he's more interesting in Hitchcock. And it's like, well, critics are lazy.
Wes Anderson's more interesting than Hitchcock for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say Wes Anderson isn't even that much of a critical darling at the moment. You know, it's a cult kind of director that he has a big fan base of. You know, that people will, you know, French Dispatch, as soon as it comes out, people will flock for the first 2 weeks to go to the cinema to see, but that will not garner the same amount of press as, say, the next Christopher Nolan movie, which all we know about at the moment is its demands. You know.
Yeah.
It's interesting how all his films as well, they go to the Criterion really quickly, don't they?
Yeah.
That's right.
Really quickly. But I mean, personally, I'd much rather. I know with Tarantino, he's obsessed with the fact that in 20, 30 years' time, some kid can come along and pluck out any one of his 10 films and them all be as good as each other in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd personally much rather go through PTA's filmography any day of the week.
Yeah.
But I know Tarantino was saying that he'd like to do a stage tour of The Hateful Eight, and everywhere he goes to complete every sort of state that he does it in, have a completely different cast, but using like big A-listers. That would have been interesting.
If it's a gimmick,
good
though,
idea.
it's really a gimmick. It's just a piece
It'd
of
be
ego.
interesting, but I don't know for how long. It's like, how many times can you watch The Hateful Eight with a different cat, you know? But,
He'd probably make it 4 hours every night.
yeah.
Yes.
It'd be an interesting one. But Paul Thomas Anderson's another director. He's got real growth throughout his career, though. You can actually see the genesis of him just growing as a director and as a storyteller. So I think that's one of the things that makes his films even more interesting, you know, is the fact that, you know, and he's done many different themes. There's good social commentary throughout his as well. You know, they're not just kind of one note things about violence or otherwise.
He's more ambitious than Tarantino as he's trying to make great films, and I think Tarantino's trying to make great genre films. Really, he wants to be the king of a genre, but he's not really doing any genre films. So he's actually trying to be an average genre director.
Yeah, it's a Tarantino genre he's interested in.
Yeah.
I always say one of the great marks of great films is you can take a subject material that I mean I could care less about. The example I'll always use, this is The Red Shoes, Paul and Pressburger again. I mean, on paper as a thing, I could care less about that thing or that theme, but actually the film on screen is mind-blowing once it's represented. You know, Paul Thomas Anderson, Phantom Thread would be another one. Dressmaking as a construct is about as uninteresting to me as for a thing to go and see, yet you go and see that film and it's about dressmaking, but it's not about dressmaking. It's about characters, and you know, it doesn't hurt that you have someone like Daniel Day-Lewis putting in performances like he does, you know, to draw you in. But brilliant stuff, you know.
Yeah, still haven't seen that one.
I haven't watched it.
Because I will admit,
it's
I'm not
fantastic.
like a huge Paul Thomas Anderson fan. I've liked every film of his that I've seen, and I've seen all of them apart from Phantom Thread. But I don't love any of them, but I certainly have a lot of time for him and a lot of respect for him and admire what he's doing. But I don't love his films, but I do like all of them.
There's a couple of directors like that. Almodovar or David Lowery is another one with Green Knight coming out. Obviously, I think it's just magnificent.
So who would you say, slightly off topic, but who would you say is your current favourite working director?
for me, it's probably Lanthimos. I think Lanthimos is the guy for me that 50 years from now we might look back on and actually think he was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
He was pretty good. That's
No,
how
but I
you're
mean,
gonna give-
no, but I mean, as far as there's a lot of directors nowadays that, as we know, if you make a good film now, it's a masterpiece, which
Yeah.
isn't true, but because the average is so poor. So I think being pretty good now, 50 years from now, looking back and saying he was actually pretty good is better than the olden days. That doesn't make any sense, but
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I've named most of mine already, but I'm really conflicted because I think the things that make somebody have really good longevity is the rewatchability of the films. So actually, it's one of the reasons that I don't hate Christopher Nolan, but I find a lot of his films, with the exception of maybe Interstellar, as complete one watches. Inception, watching it for the second time did nothing for me because the gimmick's up at that point. You know what's happening, and anybody that I can think of, like, it'll probably be Wes Anderson. If it's not Wes Anderson, it'll be Almodovar for me. It'll be one of the two of them for me. I think they just have, even though Almodovar's kind of themes are all very samey, that again, both directors kind of do the same thing again and again and again, but they have a visual language that nobody else, that's very distinct as well. So probably one of those two.
For me, at the moment, it's Sion Sono, because he's when I'm always excited about his next film. But there's so many directors I really like, and it's like I tend not to stick to one director. I mean, like, whenever David Lynch does something, I'm interested in what he does, but you never know when he's going to do another film. You never have a clue what he's going to do next. So it's like there's a lot of people I'm interested in, so I don't tend to get too bogged down as one person. It's like, who interested in out this year? Really is more my thing.
what about you, Carl?
It's really hard to not say Lanthimos, but because I'm always drawn to those types of directors. But for me, I'd go with Matteo Garrone.
Oh yeah.
For me, he hasn't put a foot wrong for me. I just adore all of his films, and he's switched up into so many different genres, and so many times for me it's the best modern film of that genre. Like Gomorrah, I just think is an absolute masterpiece of a gangster film. He's done that Tale of Tales, like a fantasy film, again, one of the best of its kind. And even the kids, even the kids sort of kids one, he did his version of Pinocchio. I thought was great. He did a film called Reality that was more of a sort of comedy about this guy who's obsessed with the fact that he's going to be one of the next contestants in the Italian Big Brother, and he gets it into his head that the producers of the show are following him around in his real life to get him to see if he's worthy of being in the show. So he starts giving all of his worldly possessions away to people, just trying to do good things, but in doing that he ends up with no furniture in his home. No, it's just a great film. And then you find out afterwards that this guy who you've just watched in this comedy is now doing life in prison because on the side he was some sort of hitman for the mafia in real life, and he's now in prison for murder. But yeah, I just love all of his films. All of the characters are just strange and weird, and all the background characters you think, I want to see their story as well. I absolutely love him.
Yeah, I didn't actually recognise the name, and then I realised I've got two of them, and I've seen a third one.
Yeah, no, another which I just thought of, it should be obvious, is Cronenberg, but I thought he retired. Now he hasn't anymore. He's come back out of retirement, and it's like, whenever he does a film, I'm really fascinated to see it. So he's been one of my favourites since I started knowing who directors were. So
I mean, I suppose anybody from Korea, pretty much, I guess.
Yeah.
And there's so many that have, there's so many that have just done like two, and you're still like, how good, like the director who did what was it, Kylie Blues and Long Day's Journey into Night.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely love both of those films. But is that enough to, you know, to say that's one of my favorite directors? It's still only 2 films, but
yeah. There's lots of those. The
Yeah.
Coen Brothers are another one. I went on to Google having it because I'm just trying to generate ideas. But the Coen Brothers would be another one who have a very up and down career now as well. There was a period where they could do no wrong, and then intolerable cruelty happened. But yeah, there are lots of those people that are nearly getting longer careers or otherwise putting it together.
Yeah. I mean, it's like directors are weird though. They do have up and down careers. I think everyone has those. It's just like the interesting ones remain interesting. That's why I'm much more interested in directors who have messy careers, because they're more fascinating. Just this idea of having a perfect career rubs me the wrong way. I'd much rather have a messy career, even if they don't even make a bad film, but they'll make interesting weird films. That's more interesting than someone just trying to be perfect all the time. It's like there's something like kind of too planned about the perfect career idea. You know?
Yeah, because it's so hard to make a quote unquote 3-star film because there's so many elements and so many parts that need to go into it. So to make actual great films and have more than one great film in your career, it's an amazing achievement.
Yeah. It's I think actually watching lots of interesting directors is a good way to avoid burnout, really. Not sticking to one person, sticking to a lot and seeing like cinema's evolving. I think it's a good way to avoid burnout rather than sticking to the prescribed thing of this is good, this is bad. Just like who's interesting, who's not. I think that helps you avoid burnout.
Yeah.
Plus, also, if you're interested in the history of cinema, then going to different periods, going to different countries will help with that as well.
The amount of times you'll watch a film and go, this is exactly like a much more famous movie that comes maybe 20, 30 years afterwards, and then maybe seeing an interview with that person or realizing it's the same screenwriter, even that they kind of had this genesis of an idea. Like I just watched Jagged Edge, the indicative release, which is written by the same screenwriter as Basic Instinct, you know, and you're like, well, this is nearly an identical movie in some ways, and yet one was wildly famous and one was not, you know.
Yeah.
And then the same way I did Flashdance and Showgirls.
That's right.
Both of which
That's
were
a career
famous for different reasons.
Double whammy.
Indeed.
Yeah, no, it's but yeah, no, I think just generally stay interested is the big way of avoiding burnout. It's like, and also just being enthusiastic about all sorts of things. Really, it's a big way to avoid it. And just be interested. Like, I've never seen this before, this kind of film before, or from this kind of country. Let's see what they've got, what their culture is. I think that helps a lot to try and find.
Again, it's that anticipation of you don't know what you're going to see, which again today, when we've pretty much seen a lot of things and you can predict how films actually go, to have an anticipation of this is from a culture I'm not familiar with, I genuinely don't know what's coming. I mean, that's a pleasure sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that probably bonds us all together is that film fans by nature are just curious. So that curiosity of what else is out there, or understanding somebody else, or you know, that empathy for other people is the bit that will always drive you to the next film, to the next story that's been told.
And to a socio-political point, but from a socio-political point, actually watching all these films from different cultures gives you a better rounded view of the world and of cultures. Now, obviously, films can be skewed. You know, what you're actually seeing is obviously not fact or anything, but it gives you a better world view of different people and different cultures as well.
Definitely.
So I think we've kind of covered the burnout pretty good now, and the recovery. I don't want to get this to go on for like forever and ever and ever, because I've got to render it.
Fair enough.
And poor SJS Arch, but he's back in the train, I think.
Yeah, he's just a couple of weeks, and then I think it's his first big one where he was like, if I've fallen out of cinema, I was like, nah, he just gives it a couple of weeks. It just takes a while sometimes.
Not everything has to be a masterpiece.
Well,
Yeah, you
it's not.
just got to keep mixing it up, haven't you?
Yeah.
And the title of his book apparently is going to be "One Tree Hill Saved My Life." You know, that's the way that's gonna
Yes.
it's going to end up. So
Yeah.
I just have vanilla when you can have raspberry ripple.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us, and
Yes, thanks very much for joining us.
and obviously plug your channels again before we finish.
I've my channel's called Into the Blue. Just on YouTube. That's it.
my name's Chris
Very good
Mohan,
channel.
and I'm on there. And yeah, I might try and record a video today because it's been nearly a month since I've done it.
Had video burnout.
Yeah.
Life burnout.
Yes.
Can you try and do your videos at the end of the month when I've been paid? It would help me quite a bit.
Well, if I recorded today, I might get it edited for the end.
Yeah. Well, we hope you enjoyed this. You know, me and Ronnie's channels.
Yeah.
So we'll be back soon with another video. We've got some more Pearl Press Burger planned and another interview, hopefully, or another discussion planned as well. So hopefully that'll work out. So thanks everybody for being here, and thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.